Hello, everybody. Welcome to the September 8th meeting of Backdrop CMS. We get together every week and talk about the development tasks and the general status of Backdrop, the project. It's 1 week from today is the release of 1.5, and we are cramming as quickly as possible to try to get all of these items that we have outstanding wrapped up. But we'll go through everything, infrastructure announcements, etc., and then we'll start talking about the 1.5 release that's coming up right around the corner. General announcements: Calabox 1. Or RC1 has been released as native Backdrop support using our Backdrop container image in Docker, which is great if you're into that sort of thing. It also could be a really easy tool to use if you're doing localhost development and would like to assemble your containers through the command line. Very cool. You can donate to Backdrop CMS for a thank you Dragon t-shirt and or hoodie. You can find more information about that at backdropcms.org/contribute. If you join the Backdrop Contrib group, which we would love everyone to do if you've ported a module to Backdrop or theme or layout or have decided to write one from scratch, we would love to have you in the Backdrop Contrib organization on GitHub, and we will be more than happy to send you a PHP Storm license that you can use for development on your Backdrop projects. Updates from the Project Management Committee. We actually do have an update this week. We took a vote after the meeting last week where we discussed this wild plan to potentially put a node reference and user reference into 1.5, into 1.5 because those modules were already done. But we took a vote on it and basically said that it would make more sense for us to do this right than to do it in a hurry, which I am very happy to see that was the outcome. So reference module has been officially pushed to 1.6. That issue is still open and in progress at 1301. And yeah, I'd still love to see that in as soon as possible. And for now, it's just been moved back to the January 15th release. Infrastructure things around the project, like our testing frameworks and GitHub and the Backdrop website itself. Items that we've got outstanding for infrastructure. We've got hopes to build out JavaScript testing. Right now we only have PHP level testing. There's an issue at 2097 for making JavaScript-based testing a reality in Backdrop. Right now it doesn't actually have any activity going on in it, but there's a good possibility we'll be able to pull the code out of Drupal 8 that adds JavaScript-based testing and add that to our own simple test module in Backdrop. Automatic updates. Automatic updates is a feature that would complement nicely our update checking and ability to install modules from backdropcms.org on particular websites that need to have the security updates applied but don't have a developer always looking at the site all the time. We're discussing this issue in concept but not yet in code at 2024 as an idea and an option that would lower the overall cost of ownership of a website. So fitting nicely with our philosophy, but yeah, kind of a challenge from a technical standpoint. Next item, Backdrop CMS on Pantheon/Drush/updates. I haven't checked in on this because I've been occupied with the release coming up. Jeff, is there any news regarding Drush and Pantheon? Oh, I'm afraid we don't have a microphone, Jeff. No change. Okay. Thanks, Jeff. No change basically being that There's an issue right now that Pantheon and Drush should, in theory, all be working together, but we have some suggestions and things that we could try out on how to actually get those things working together. In theory, they should be possible to combine at this point. Yeah, there's also some updates there. Pantheon has added the ability to add YAML files to the root of your repository for configuring the way that Pantheon itself works, which includes switching out to PHP 7, which works great with Backdrop, and a lot of people have been using that option now. So that's fantastic. Let's see. Somebody published this one, and I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, added to the agenda, that GitHub is improving collaboration options. And they have a blog post here, improving collaborations with forks, that was just published yesterday. Was it any of you guys that are in the meeting that added this to the agenda by chance and has read more about it? Jeff did, of course, the guy without a microphone. Anyway, it looks pretty exciting. They've added a checkbox so that it looks like pull requests can be modified by other maintainers. I think that is what that means, which is really exciting. We have a little bit of an issue that right now the Backdrop CMS.org repository is not is only writable by a very small number of people, including Jeff, myself, and Doc Wilmot. So this might not help us immediately, but with some adjustments to our workflow, we'll see if we can make this a possibility. We might make like a separate repository, kind of like the Backdrop docs or Backdrop issues repository, and then just give everybody right access to it, which would allow for more open collaboration. Yeah, very neat. At least from the standpoint of maintainers fixing pull requests, that still could be pretty handy for ourselves, because every time I re-roll a pull request because of a merge conflict, I have to close the old pull request and open a new one. At least with this, I'll be able to go in and fix merge conflicts and whatever into the original pull requests, and that'll make for fewer closings and openings of new pull requests, which makes the thread-up conversation a little easier to follow. Yeah, everybody's now reading that blog post trying to figure out what the heck it means. Yeah, very cool. That's really exciting. Brand new news hot off the presses. All right, the flagship website, backdropcms.org. Normally, Jen would be doing the update on the website because she's been giving that a lot of focus recently, but she's not here in the meeting today, so I'll do the best I can to cover this in summary. Coming soon, a showcase section for sites built on Backdrop. We have an issue for this at 176. I think that there might already be like a content type built out for this, but I'm not totally certain. But we would like to have a showcase showcase content type that is used to highlight sites that are built on Backdrop, and then we can publish those to backdropcms.org as homepage highlights or as a whole subsection of the website. The support section is being built out pretty extensively. We have a lot of really great new documentation, thanks to Doc Wilmot, that you can take a gander at backdropcms.org/user guide, and it's looking really good. I think that we bring this up during the design calls every week, or every other week, that we need some design love on the user guide itself, like especially on the homepage landing for the user guide, kind of splitting that up instead of having a page that's just like, welcome to the guide, and then nothing but navigation. But it's great that that we've built out a lot of great content, and content is so frequently the problem in our world that it's great to have all of that built out and looking really great. And now we do the easy parts of actually making it look good. Forums. We have some ideas around adding forums to backdropcms.org itself. I don't think that there's been recent activity on these issues, so I'll just reference the issue numbers, which are issues 18 in the backdropcms.org issue queue and 250. And I think that one of these is discussion and the other one is implementation, like options for doing implementation, and the other one just discussing where we should host it or what sort of features we want to have it included and things like that. Let's see, updates underway. Useful statistics on our homepage is issue 243. That's things like number of downloads and number of active installs. Find modules, themes, and layouts. Not sure if this is a design task or... cleaning up the interface for search. We have design mockups that have been around, but we haven't fully implemented to make them look like the mockups is issue 95. And service provider listing follow-ups. We have this great service provider listing that shows vendors and hosting providers that can be used with Backdrop or that offer Backdrop services. And we have some follow-ups here for adding additional segmentation and filtering options at issue 195. So all of those things underway in some form, but volunteers, as always, needed if you're interested in helping make backdropcms.org a better place to collaborate, then take a look at those issues. Let's see, useful statistics on the homepage. Jeff is working on this. Great. I'm sorry we can't actually get a verbal update, Jeff, but awesome. Thanks for working on that.
Also, a few changes that happened like in the past day. We had the tags for the blogs being just a single tag, and some people, because they needed to put more tags, they just put a single phrase like separated by spaces. We've changed that to a multiple tag field, and then updated the CSS so that it can work. So some people that have blogs already might want to update their tags. That's one. And just wait a second. Oh, I can't think of any other now. There was an issue with, see how we have the emoji support coming up? I tried copy pasting a text to CKEditor, my blog actually, and sort of like crashed the site. I think I have an issue for that. I didn't know that pasting emojis was actually sort of like crashing the site. I thought it was just not supported.
Okay, excellent. All right. Okay, great. Yeah, also I called out during the outreach meeting your blog post. That's great. Really fantastic to have that post in helping getting other people involved. I love that somebody asked the question like, I don't know how to file a pull request, and you're like, I know how to do that, and then wrote up an article and then published it. That was fantastic. And yeah, all through the interface without doing a clone or anything. And so that's funny because your name is Clonos. Clone-free Clonos. All right, sorry, puns. All right, let's talk about Backdrop. Backdrop the project. So upcoming releases, the next bug fix release, 1.4.5, could be released at any time, but almost certainly at this point now. The last 1.4 release will come out the same day that 1.5 comes out. It's tradition that we flush out all of the pending issues that have been committed to the previous release on the day of the next one. And so 1.4.5 will be coming out next week, a week from today, with all of the fixes that we have so far accumulated for that branch. There's no real major items at this point but we have accumulated a fair number of fixes in there. Let's see, important bug fixes. We have a section here for major bugs in Backdrop that we're working on fixing. The images posted through CKEditor and then into blocks that had their images being deleted by cron jobs during cleanup, that issue is now finally, we think, under control. There's a pull request that is in the needs review status that solves this issue by doing a couple things. It marks files as permanent when they're uploaded into a block pretty much immediately. Not quite immediately, like if you start creating a block, insert an image, and then just close the window, that will still be cleaned up. But as soon as you save the block the first time, that image becomes permanent. And then it stays permanent pretty much for all time, because deleting images is a tricky issue because of configuration can be moved in between environments, but content like files stays on one environment. So deleting is a risky operation where we could inadvertently start deleting content if blocks are moved in between environments. So for now, what we've done is we've made it so images that are uploaded in this manner become self-referencing, which means they will never delete because they're referencing themselves. Anyway, the bottom line is that issue is pretty much wrapped up. It needs review on the implementation. There's tests already, but that is pretty much complete at this point, which is fantastic. We had a lot of back and forth in that issue queue, and we ultimately reached a compromise that what we'll try to do there is later the plan is to make it so that all files that are uploaded through rich text editors, instead of being bound to the content that they are uploaded into, like a file uploaded into a node is bound to the node, and then when you delete the node, it deletes the file as well. A later plan is once we implement out the full file manager, which is issue 1448, that we would make it so that all files start becoming kind of the equivalent of self-referencing, that when you upload a file, it becomes an individual piece of content that stands alone from the content it is associated with. And that means that this is the way that WordPress works, that when you upload a file into a post, and then if you delete that post, the file is still there. But that's okay because there's a separate interface for managing your files. And so you can go over to your file manager and configure that file or delete it or do whatever you want. And so the holdup here is that we don't have a file manager right now. So right now we still are in this content, or files are bound to content they're attached to, rather than files being standalone pieces of content. So long term, we may actually end up making all files basically permanent by default. But until we get that file manager built out, we've done it only in this very one specific place, which is like, you know, a very common scenario that people want to upload an image into a block. So that's the status on that one. That will be merged here definitely in the next week for the 1.5 release, and it will also be in the 1.4, the last version of Reform 1.4 that goes out. 1.5, that's the release that's coming up. We are excited. There's all kinds of things that have been happening. I was saying that after this release, I think we might need to start having feature freezes, because everything's happening all at once, and that's great. That we're gonna have 1.5, and it's gonna be a pretty awesome release. So let's talk about the things that we're working on. 7.50, Drupal 7.50, cross posts or cross ports. I don't know if there's been much action on this one yet. We've got about half of these, half of the items out of 7.50 either cross-ported. Most of them are actually already in Backdrop 1.4, but there's a fair number of new features that are in 7.50 that we're working on porting so that it will be in the 1.5 release. Most notable of all of these, in my opinion, is the adding support for 4-character UTF-8 encoding, which makes it so that we can store emojis or fancy mathematical symbols into the database. And that issue is pretty much done. It's been done for a little while, but it's sitting there and needs review. If anybody has some time to do additional testing or code review, you can take a look at issue 8.4, and that's the issue for adding essentially emoji supports to Backdrop. It works really well in my testing, at least. We have a built-in upgrade path through the UI. It does require a change to settings.php in order to turn on the functionality and then run the update through the user interface. And there's unfortunately a lot of technical reasons why that ended up being the case. But it does make it so that we have full backwards compatibility. We don't actually need to try to modify or truncate any columns in order to accommodate this, but you do need to have a newer version of MySQL in order to support such functionality. So if you have it, Backdrop out of the box will use it. If you don't have it, Backdrop out of the box will not use it, but you can upgrade to it later if you switch to a server that supports it. So very neat. Reference module is the next item on here. I think I didn't skip this section. We took a vote from the PMC on reference module and officially pushed that to 1.6. So that will not be happening for the 1.5 release, but this is the first meeting since that decision had been made. So we're still going to be doing some work on it. It's in the contrib group actually as a standalone module right now, which is where most of the work is happening. So if you're wanting to make sure that 1.6 includes this critical functionality, then start collaborating in the contrib group for the reference module, and we won't miss this again. The new front-end theme, I think that this is pretty much our killer feature for the 1.5 release, the new front-end theme called Basis. Wes, do you want to give the kickoff on Basis?
Yeah, it's crunch time. I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to do last week, but the big takeaway for me was responding to some of Graham's issues implementing the theme, and it also kind of echoed some of the things that either Jen wrote or Jen reminded me of Jen Simmons from her comments on Drupal.org. I'm going to change the header to make the CSS less opinionated, so it's easier to override. It might not be as cool looking, but it'll be a lot easier to work with. And I'm not making as many assumptions about number of items in the menu or things like that. So, and then I haven't gotten to a lot of the issues that needed more follow-up that you posted, Nate. And I will be taking a look again today, and definitely be putting in a lot of time this weekend. And I'll take a look at the hero as well.
What would be your preference, Wes, moving forward at this point? Like, would you prefer this to continue being in the contrib group, or should we start forming this into a pull request and working off of that?
Yeah, the pull request would be good because I don't know much about how the default config works or how to update that, so it'd be good if someone helped me out with that. And I'll probably end up maintaining it in both places, whatever changes.
Okay. Yeah, some items, I'm not sure if Basis actually will need the functionality that has been moved into core. You remember, or moved around in core. Like we moved the font detection thing and the responsive tabs into central locations now. That obviously won't work in 1.4 because they're not centralized in that version. So,
So people, if you're using Basis, basically use the head of 1.x, not 1.4.
Okay.
If you're updating basis, I think that's the takeaway.
Okay.
And it is marked as not production ready, which I don't know. It is right now in Contrib. I think it's solid, but yeah, we're moving things around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in a funny place where it's like it's in Contrib, but we only have a week before it's actually moved into core. I mean, probably less than that actually.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but the Contrib version is going to not work with anything except for 1.x. So it's like, yeah.
Hooray!
All right. Well, we'll keep working. Whenever you feel like PR is most appropriate, then I'll leave that to you to actually make that.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we'll just keep cranking on Contrib. And Contrib will require the 1.x version for the next week. Okay. Yeah, it's looking really great, though. I did post a whole crap ton of feedback, and I did all of the peripheral things around Basis that looked like they were pending, which some of those pull requests have been out for a long time, and I got all of those into 1.x. Yeah, the header, like you mentioned, is the number one big issue with Basis at this point. That at least the out of box has some issues that we need to address before it moves into core. And specifically the menu positioning, but you already know about that, so I'll leave it to you. Let's see. Yeah, the other items that are slated for 1.5, it looks like what 1.5 is actually going to end up being is it's going to significantly change the out-of-box experience. So Basis has the new default theme, which is really exciting. And then these two items, adding a new homepage layout so that we have a new path, I think it's at /home instead of /node, that the standard profile will ship with a layout configuration for the homepage that is just a single column layout. And that is coming along really pretty nicely. It's surprisingly a lot more complicated than it might sound, especially because we have hundreds of tests that all test the existing homepage, and when we swapped out the homepage for something else, it started causing all kinds of issues. This also has some other interesting side effects, like we previously shipped with a front page view, for example, and as a side effect of this, existing sites that have that view will be unaffected, but new sites that are installed will no longer come with a front page view. They will come with a front page layout. And instead of the view being a page, it will come with a block for promoted. And so the view will be called promoted. That includes all of the promoted content, and it will be displayed as a block that is by default placed into the front page layout. Which actually I find this to be great. Like, we're going to end up with a bunch of pre-configured things that people are like, oh, this is a listing on my homepage, and they can change how the listing works, which is fantastic. Or like, I want to remove this listing from the homepage and put something else there. Like, they will start out with something that they can easily modify right off the bat. That's looking really great. I think that yeah, the tests are all now passing. Oh, and related to this pull request to disable /node has also been merged. And so if you have something else set to be your front page, then /node just disappears, which is fantastic because, as we pointed out last week during the meeting, every popular Drupal site that we could think of still had /node accessible, but it was an unstyled piece of crap on like every single one of these websites. And that's because everybody doesn't use /node for their homepage, but nobody removes /node. And so you end up with this cruft on your website. So that'll be really exciting. /node essentially will be deprecated entirely for the 2.0 release. So eventually, when we release 2.0, /node will be a part of history that won't exist anymore. For now, /node is actually moving officially into a deprecated status, which is fantastic. Yeah, there are also a few additional complexities around the RSS feeds that we also need an RSS feed to be functionally equivalent to what we had previously. That RSS feed is also now powered by Views in that same promoted view configuration, as I understand it. A new hero block. This doesn't sound super ambitious, but actually it's been a little bit tricky figuring out from an implementation standpoint that we're going to include a new functionality. Right now it's part of layout module, I believe, for adding hero blocks. And a hero block basically is very similar to a standard custom text block, that it has a title and a body field, but it also has an image upload. And the image upload, similar to what we're doing for other blocks, the image that you upload will be marked permanent immediately once it's been used in a block. But unlike other things, unlike inserting it into the text area, that image will be used as a background image on that block, just styled using background image inline styles. If you don't specify a background image, because the field is optional, then the theme will provide its default background image, which is where the background image that we see in the Basis mockups comes into play. So Basis will need to be updated, and as will Bartik actually, to support this markup provided by the homepage hero. That issue is issue 1152. It's in progress, is functional from like a implementation standpoint, but we're held up on deciding what the default markup should be and how the CSS should affect it. Funny how frequently that ends up being the case. But it's looking really good. I think that it's almost certainty that that will be in prior to 1.5 being pushed out. So those things we know for sure, I think. The front-end theme, the front-end homepage layout, and the hero block all seem like they are on the cusp of completion. This next item would be fantastic, but if one of them needs to get dropped, it's what will be dropped. And that's the responsive drop-down menus, issue 2107. And there's been a lot of discussion in the past week about implementing the responsive menus, and I think library-wise that we've, it's funny because we haven't actually expressed consensus, but I feel like there is one already that we've had a couple of options for using libraries and potentially using admin menus, JavaScript for a library, but I think that we'll probably end up using this library called Smart Menus, which is mobile, touch-friendly, responsive, etc. It also solves a bunch of other issues that we have in admin bar right now. That admin bar like goes flying off the right side of the page if you're too close to the edge of the window, and it doesn't have any kind of ability for hover intention and all sorts of things that this library would provide if it were integrated into the front end and possibly as part of admin menu. So we've got a lot of ideas for using it in the future, but the thing is right now we are stuck in actually implementing that. We have two approaches to actually turning on this functionality. We have a checkbox approach where it's just like a checkbox for make dropdown, and then we have this menu styles approach where you get to choose and configure the way that a menu would work on a per block basis. From an implementation standpoint, both of those tie-ins are pretty much, I mean, they could be functional and it's pretty straightforward, but the way that the admin menu actually integrates into the menu on the front end is where we have no implementation that is acceptable at all. So we have two back-end approaches that are both acceptable, but no front-end approaches that are working. And so, yeah, I think it's unlikely that that will make it into the next release, especially, Wes, if you have a limited amount of time, like focusing on Basis is more important. And other front-enders, I would say the same thing to them, that if it comes down between Basis and the drop-down menus. We need to focus on Basis. But that doesn't mean that it's entirely ruled out. But it makes me really nervous. We need to get some real serious collaboration on that issue in order to make it happen for the next release. So please post comments, ideas, thoughts, implementations, pull requests to issue 2107 if you'd like to make responsive drop-down menus happen out of the box in 1.5. The next item we've gotten here is improving the rich text editor, which is a meta issue. This was one of the items that I was hoping we would be able to make some serious improvements in this release, but there hasn't been a whole lot of activity here. I think the things that we will do, Gregory, you reminded me that we should go through our libraries and make sure they're all up to date, and so we updated jQuery to the very latest version. So that's great that jQuery will be the latest version. We also have things like jQuery UI and CKEditor that could also use taking a look at and making sure that those libraries are all also up to date as well. Yeah, one of the items in this meta is enabling spell check in the rich text editor. I'm pretty sure that that's almost just like a flag. Like that's probably only like a 5 or 10 line fix. If we can figure out what we can do to actually disable CKEditor's disabling of the spell check, then that would be a nice win. There's a bunch of other items in that meta for improving the rich text editor at 1087. A lot of these things are front ends, and either they work or they don't. I mean, that's oversimplifying things, but a lot of them are front end fixes that don't require extensive integrations anywhere else, and so there's still a possibility that we might knock 1 or 2 of these off if we have a volunteer to actually work on them. All right, that does it for the 1.5 release. As mentioned, it probably will pretty much be giving us a big bang in our out-of-box experience between a front-end layout, the hero block, the front-end theme, the front page layout, and the hero block, all of which are pretty great, and I think that that'll really improve our out-of-box experience. We still have time for a couple of additional fixes, but they need to be rolling pretty much immediately. We also updated the roadmap for the 1.6 release as the reference module has been officially pushed to 1.6. We moved that into the roadmap for the next release, and we also slated the file management section for the 1.6 release, although I don't think that they spent a lot of discussion around that yet. I think we just wanted to make the roadmap actually look like it had some more things going on rather than just the thing that didn't fit into this release. So some more discussion about the next release and where our focus should be would be great to start having, but let's do that next week. Maybe the week after that, actually. After we get out the 1.5 release. We also have continuous improvements happening in user experience and developer experience. These have been going in throughout the release, and a bunch of 1.4 items actually have some user experience improvements, adding help text, descriptions, fixing JavaScript behaviors, those sorts of things. You can find a whole list of UX issues by searching for the UX square brackets on GitHub. That does it for the 1.5 release. I'm pretty sure we're going to be slamming on that all week. And yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see everything come together. And it's going to be, it's going to be great. Let's see, community growth update from Gregory.
Yep. Right, we have 309 total projects on GitHub. That's +2 since last meeting. 224 projects with official releases on backdropcms.org. That's 9 more since last meeting. 355 releases, which is +10 since last meeting. That's Doc Wilmot, most of it. 56 total backdrop contrib authors, +1 since last meeting, and +1 pending applications, bringing them to 15. 26 organization profiles supporting backdrop, no change there. 355 total user accounts, +4 since last meeting. And the new stat there for the Backdrop CMS core download count is 6,234, which is +94 since last meeting.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super exciting. Welcome, Al Roskov, our new contributor. That is fantastic. And thanks, Gregory, for processing that application. Yay! We love new contrib authors and a new one in the pending queue, too. That is fantastic. As we've seen kind of again and again with people that join the contrib group, that just a few people can make just a tremendous impact on our contrib repository. The task of porting modules to Backdrop is so trivial that one contributor can frequently increase our entire contrib repository by 5%, which is just bananas. So welcome, new contributors. We're really excited to have you in the Backdrop community. And there's no reason to delay. If you're interested in joining the Backdrop contrib group, you can do that anytime. You can find out how to apply to the contrib group at github.com/backdrop-ops/contrib. And that's where we go through the process of reviewing applications, which is a really straightforward process, as you can see by the previous applications that have been going through. And we'd love to have new contributors. News and announcements. Official blog schedule is posted to the backdropcms.org issue queue at issue 158. I looked at this earlier during the outreach meeting, and it's a little bit... oh, actually, this one isn't so neglected. We must have 2 issues for this. But we'd love to get some more blog posts published out to backdropcms.org. I mentioned during the last meeting that Gregory published a great blog post on how to contribute to Backdrop or how to make pull requests the noob way, which is actually really great and informative article on how to make changes and tweaks to Backdrop without actually cloning the repository. It's all just through the interface, which is fantastic. Newsletter. The newsletter for 1.4 never went out. And at this point, yeah, the 1.5 release is coming out in a week. So, yeah, I don't know about that. We very well may be our next newsletter is the 1.5 release. Speaking of which, I mentioned a lot during the last meeting, we need marketing help because that newsletter could have gone out any time, but we basically just never got around to it. It's even actually written and everything. So, so the next newsletter will be coming out after probably the release of 1.5. Saying, hey, 1.5 is out. It's fantastic. Look at these new features we've added. We'll probably also have a little section for, not check that Backdrop recently. We also did a lot of stuff. We have a whole section for marketing-related tasks. It's actually no longer called marketing in GitHub. It's called outreach. Find the list of outreach tasks under the backdropcms.org issue queue, audience outreach. Change this. All right. Sprinting. Every Thursday is Backdrop Day, and we will be working after this meeting to continue to push forward on all of these items for the 1.5 release. You can meet up with us live and in person on Gitter, which is an online chat application that is integrated with GitHub. It's a lot like Slack, basically, but integrated with GitHub. It's a fantastic tool, and we are going to be there today and probably all weekends working live with each other to make the next release of Backdrop amazing. We also use GitHub as our primary means of official documentation and recording of activity. You can find that at github.com/backdrop. Upcoming events, you can get a list of upcoming events that feature Backdrop or at which Backdrop presentations will be given or community members will be present at backdropcms.org/events. There's also an iCal feed if you're interested in getting a list of all Backdrop-related activity. Books that are available for Backdrop, beginning of Backdrop CMS. The first comprehensive guide to Backdrop has been published and is out. You can grab it from Apress or on Amazon. I know our copy is on the mail, or in the mail, so I'm really excited to get my hands on that one. And Migrating from Drupal to Backdrop is a slimmer book, just on the process of moving from your existing Drupal 6 or 7 sites onto Backdrop. Again, available on Apress or from Amazon.com. All right. That does it for the meeting. Whew. Go team.
By the way, the session for Drupal South was approved. They say don't say anything until Monday, but yes, it was selected, so we'll be in Drupal South presenting a session about Backdrop. That's great news.
All right, Backdrop Down Under. Okay, well that's it for the meeting. We're almost at the top of the hour, so let's break. Yeah, we'll see all of you guys in the issue queues, and this time next week we'll probably have our last minute. I'm not quite sure what we'll do the meeting the day of a release, but we'll find out as that date approaches. So, and my camera's kind of fuzzy. All right, well that's the sign for the end of the meeting. All right, thank you guys all for coming, and thank everyone for watching. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.